Hello everyone, this is Eric here, and we're going to discuss how to use the Optimizer tool in the toolbox page in your members area. So one thing I want to say before we get started is make sure that you've watched all the previous videos leading up to this one. The one I'm the most concerned about is the simulator video because it will be rather important for understanding how the optimizer works. So having said that, I will just give a brief explanation for what I mean by that, and that is that the optimizer, essentially, you can think of it like this. It's going to be taking the simulator and running it many times to find which trade ratio is best for your specific goals. So when I say trade ratio, I mean the percentage of bankroll that you're staking per trade. So you'll notice that a lot of these inputs are the same as with your simulator, and they are defined the same way. They are the same thing. So with this, I'm always going to recommend that you select after each trade. And what that means is that you are calculating the amount that you want to stake every trade after each trade. This does not mean that you are changing your strategy at all. You are fixing a percentage and you're keeping that flat always. A lot of people confuse changing your amount staked per trade on a regular basis. They confuse that with something like martingaling. I'm not recommending that you change the percentage. You keep the percentage the same all the time. Every day you keep it the same. But it's good to take that percentage and evaluate it with the size of your bankroll, because 10% of a bankroll that is $10,000 is only $100, and once your bankroll grows to $10,000, then you want to be looking at 10% of that, right, which will be $1,000. So let's go ahead and look at filling out the rest of these inputs so that we can do a trial run. So we'll do win rate here. Let's say that you have a win rate of 64%. And let's say that you're going to initially invest in your trading $1,000. Now this is not a recommendation. You can do whatever you want. You can start with the minimum that your broker allows. This is simply a nice round number, and so we're just going to throw that in there. There is really no recommendation either way. Of course, if you are very successful with trading, then you might want to invest a little more. If you're not sure about it right away, then you can start with less. All right, let's say we're getting 10 signals a day and we're taking action on all of them. And I'm going to go ahead and just run this for 6 months. Now the minimum allowed stake per trade, as you should know the definitions of all of these already from watching the previous videos on Simulator and other tools, but I'm just going to cover this real quick to make sure. This is not something you decide. The minimum allowed stake per trade is based on what your broker says is the minimum allowed stake per trade. So for example, if you're using Boss Capital, that would be $10. So you can look around, and now they may have different levels, but for the basic account level, the minimum is $10. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. Now this is also determined by your broker. So again, I'm going to use the example of the standard Boss Capital account. The maximum allowed stake per trade would be $7,500. Return on investment for a winning trade. This depends on the trade itself. It's going to be different for every trade usually because you're going to be trading a different asset. I would recommend not, well, you know what your win rate is, but depending on your win rate, I would not recommend taking anything here that's, say, below 70% return on your investment. Specifically, if you're getting as low as like 60% win rate. So use the break-even win rate calculator or use the formula in the video for the break-even win rate calculator, and just figure out what your break-even win rate would be for the given payout rate that you're looking at, the return on investment for a winning trade. So let's say it's 70%. You'll find that your break-even win rate would be 58.8%. Well, if you know that your win rate is substantially more than 58.8%, 64% would be fine. Then 70% is it's an okay return to accept. But if you had a win rate of, let's say, 59%, I would not recommend accepting a trade where the payout was only 70%. I would be aiming for something quite a bit higher, either 75 or ideally even up closer to 85. So things can get really volatile if your win rate is getting really close to that break-even win rate. Let's go ahead and move on now. Maximum loss threshold. This just means that this is the maximum amount of loss I'm willing to sustain before I quit, I give up. Now, I would recommend going as close to 100% as possible when you're running this, because I'm assuming whatever you put in here, you were willing to risk. So let's say I put in $1,000, but I'm really only willing to risk 750. Well, then why don't you just put in 750? So this is saying that I'm willing to lose $750 of my initial investment, or 75%. If I lose that much, then I'm done trading. I'm not going to do it anymore. So that was what we would call ruin in this case. This is how we're going to define ruin for the optimizer. So ruin is defined as losing 75% of this. Now, if you hear this and you think, no, actually, if I hit 500, I would take my money out. Well, okay, in that case, you would want to select this. Personally, I always go as high as possible on these, but everybody's different, and maybe you wanted a lot of seed money so you could see faster growth, but you're really not going to you're not going to tolerate losing more than 25% of it. Well, in that case, then you would select here. So I'm going to go ahead and select this, and I'm going to say I want the probability of hitting that 75% loss to be rather low. I'm going to go with 5%. Now, you may be more interested in 1%, but I'm going to go ahead and select 5%. So this is just the probability. This 5% risk is the probability that I'm actually going to hit ruin or lose 75% of my initial investment. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click maximize profit. So this is going to run, and we're going to let it run for a little bit. Alright, now it's done, and as you can see, it's printed out this line that says that your optimal trade ratio is 8.1%. So that means that you should be staking 8.1% of your initial investment per trade. So in the case of $1,000, that would be $81. So $81 per trade. Now, as this changes, if you win a trade, then it will be a little bit higher because the actual bankroll has gone up. So it's not just 8.1% of your initial investment, it's 8.1% of your current bankroll. Okay, so hopefully this has been helpful. If you're using this tool and something has changed, all of the basic functionality should be the same, but we are going to try to, in the future, hopefully the near future, include some more information printed out below once this runs, so that you'll be able to understand a little bit more about what's going on. And but right now we just give this one value. This is what we're trying to find, so we're spitting that out. 8.1% is your optimal trade ratio. So please keep in mind, if you run this several times, there could be a small variation in the output. We won't try to keep it at least within a percent of this, but because we are running simulations of the real world, things could be a little bit different, things could change, but in several simulations we are able to kind of hone in on that correct number. So we're going to try to get it to you at least within 1% of that. So to be conservative, if you want to subtract off a percentage point off of that, and go with 7.1% or 7%, that is fine too. And keep in mind that's a 5% risk of losing 75% of your money. So hopefully this has been helpful. We're going to go over taking this back into the simulator and checking out that distribution more in the next video. So please check that out. Visit us at thelogicaloption.com. Thank you.